Wonderful, wonderful. We do have a few people here, and it's 4 o'clock on the dot. And I'm so delighted to be here today. My name is Vidya Murthy, and let me tell you who I am and a little bit about what I do and what I'm going to be talking to you today about. Like I said, my name is Vidya Murthy. I run an organization called Bassett Education India. Bassett Education India is actually part of the Global Bassett Business Group, and we are a life skills communication center. And what does life skills really mean? It really refers to the core skills that all of us need to be successful. It's really simple, right? So we teach how to handle thought, how to manage emotion, how to communicate, and how to communicate across cultures. Um, this session is extremely special to me because I truly believe that I am talking to stars. And the reason that I think all of you are stars is because parenting is the hardest task on the planet. And my background is in communication, it's in communication psychology, it's in applied behavioral sciences. And I worked over the globe, worked extensively in the United States with organizations in Europe and certainly in India as well. Uh, Hello, everybody, and particularly to Harshagiri Shramaya, who has said hello multiple times, and to Sumit Nagpal as well. Thank you so much for listening in today. Um, if you're all going to be tuned in for the next 58 minutes, please listen to what I'm saying. This can leave you with some very profound impacts on your life, on the next generation, on the happiness quotient of your family life, which I believe is more important than anything else. When we are talking about parenting, we know that parenting doesn't come with a manual, and it has its set of incredible challenges. The way that I see it, the way that I see it, parenting, from the moment we all become parents, when you hold that little baby in your hands, I think we are, or we have begun on a minimum 25-year project. Having a baby and raising it into a responsible, happy, healthy adult is a 25-year project. And this project, once you're a parent, there is no going back. It is filled with as much stress as joy, as much confusion as information. And that is why today I'd like to talk to you about some tips that I have for all of you parents on how you help your child learn. And when we talk about cognitive ability, cognitive means all things thought. So we all can teach our children, especially the younger children from ages 1 through 6 or 7. And we teach our children so many things. They learn language, they learn expression, they learn the alphabet, colors, shapes, numbers, motor skills, social skills. But today, I'm really going to be focused on a parent's role in helping your child develop the ability to learn, the cognitive ability to learn. So it is almost as if you're empowering your child with the ability to learn new things, with the ability to have an approach that is conducive to expanding their frame of mind, not just during the ages of 1 to 8, but right up until the time they live to be 100 years. And that really is what my talk is focused on today. I'm going to be sharing with you some very simple do's and don'ts. And I want you all to please listen to how learning really happens in a human. How does learning really happen in a human? Do we all learn because we see the same things, or we hear the same things, or we memorize the same things, or we watch people behaving a certain way? Well, the scientific process of learning is really when our brain forms neuron connections with each other. So, all of you might know that we have about 100 billion neuron cells in our brains. And every time, as long as we are alive, every time we learn something new, if you learn a new word today, then a new neuron connection is formed. The more that you keep recalling that word over and over again, the way that new information gets embedded in your brain is when fat grows over these neuron connections. So, for example, if I asked Harisha, what is your name? He's not going to take that long to answer. He's just going to know it because our names are so clearly embedded in our brains because it has a thick layer of fat over it. You might have heard adults say that fat is very important for brain development. This is why it is important, particularly in the ages of 1 through 7, when 90% of all neuron connections in our lifetime are formed. We, as parents of young babies, have an even greater responsibility. And that is why I feel that parents should be aware that their role is not merely to teach academic curriculum or new facts and new figures, but help your child's brain develop in such a way that it can continue to remain a lifelong learner. And what does this really mean? Please, everybody, take a pause and think about your child. Please think about what kind of person would you like your child to be? There is no right and wrong. We all want the exact same things for our children. But what kind of person would you like your child to be? It might be based on you, your personal experiences, your family values, your spouse's family values. You might want your child to be like you. You might know something about yourself and say, I don't want my child to be like me. But think about what kind of person you want your child to be. The second question that you all really need to think about is what kind of skill does your child need to be a happy and a successful adult? It's not just algebra, we all know that. It's not knowing English, we know that. So, what is it? What kind of skills does your child need to be a successful adult? So, when you kind of find out what kind of skills you want to foster in your child, then you can tweak the way you talk to your 1 year old, 2 year old, 5 year old, 10-year old, or 15-year old even. So there are two fundamental approaches when it comes to parenting. There was a little boy in Switzerland, and his parents made him play every game there was till the age of 15. He played golf, he tried his hand at football, and it was only at the age of 15 that he really found out that tennis was his first love. And that boy, of course, is Federer. So the first approach is having a broad approach where you expose your child to different kinds of things and it's explorative. And then they find something that works for them, that they are awesome at, that they enjoy doing. The second kind of parenting is more deep than broad. And the perfect example of this is golfer Tiger Woods. When he was 3 years old, his father taught him golf. He's done nothing more in his life than play golf. And he knew, and his father knew, that that's where his talent was, and they nurtured it from such a young age. So, as a style of parenting, you have two choices: either you go broad or you go deep. So, I ask you to think about what kind of person you want your child to be, what skills you want your child to learn, two fundamental approaches to parenting, broad and deep. And we shall all remember, and this is very important, that parenting style changes with age. And I'm certain that most parents know that. I'm going to really take you quickly through my 10 tips for parents today. And these 10 tips are based on my experience in the world of communication, in the world of having interacted with C-level executives in multiple continents, with journalists who are so well read, but it's also embedded in my interaction with teachers, with principals, with owners of schools, colleges, deans of universities that I work with routinely. But more than all, as a mother of two teenage girls myself, this is what I have come to strongly believe. I'm going to go through these 10 tips, and I'm really hoping that all of you can take these 10 tips and use them as implementable takeaways. Please make sure that it stays with you, especially since you're taking the time out to listen and hear. I really hope that it translates into something that makes you a more fulfilling parent. My first tip to you is model the right attitude, behaviors, and opinions. Model the right attitudes, behaviors, and opinions. Our children do not do like we ask them to do, they do exactly the way we do. So, today, if you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, do you realize that it is only today that we are doing something that our mothers used to do or our fathers used to do? But when we were 15 or 16 or 17, we didn't really value what they did, what they said, how they functioned in the house, their values. We didn't understand it fully. But now that we're all running our own homes, managing our careers, multitasking, now we understand why mom and dad did what they did. Back in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 20 years ago, whenever. It stays with the child. They look and they observe and they notice what it is that you're doing. So if you're getting off the bed at 10:30, 10:45 every morning, please don't tell your child that it's important to wake up early. It starts as something as simple there. If you want your child to have a certain amount of empathy, show it in the way that you talk to your domestic help, the way that you talk to the security guards in your society. So, for parenting, it becomes very important that we become the models of right attitudes, right behaviors, and right opinions. Isn't this why Mahatma Gandhi said the child is the father of man? Because it is only after I became a mother that I started becoming even more conscious, even more careful of what I said, of how I treated my house, how I valued my material possessions, because I knew somebody was watching and somebody is learning. And when you're a parent, you're being watched all the time, even by a 2 year old, a 3 year old, or a 4 year old. They're so smart. They know exactly what's going on. My second tip to you talks about the power of touch. Yes, the power of touch. And if you listen to your grandmothers or your great grandmothers, there is a very ancient Indian wisdom in what I'm saying. Touch is a very powerful human sense. And what this basically says is that the more you touch your child, the entire time, not just when they're babies. When they're babies, you touch them because you're holding the baby, you're feeding the baby, you're changing their diaper, you're giving them a bath. But as the child continues to grow, please take every opportunity, father or mother, to physically touch your child. You could be applying lotion to their feet. You could be helping them put their jackets on. You could be making ponytails on your daughter's hair. You could be tying their shoelaces. You could be patting their back. Think about it. Even today, when we are in a social setting, don't you feel nice when a friend comes and puts their arm around your shoulder? What is the psychological consequence of touch? Touch gives them a sense of security. Security, in turn, leads to confidence and self esteem. And confidence and self esteem govern the way a child learns for its entire life. It's as simple as that. It is a chain reaction. Touch your child, constantly, every chance you get. Hugs. Don't undermine the value of these, and it can't just be one hug in the evening. It has to be constant, consistent, even if your child is 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Please make sure that you don't pass a chance to put your hand around their shoulder or to hold your 8-year old. My third tip for parents is limiting baby talk. So, all of us know what baby talk is, and baby talk is very important. So, when you see an 8-month-old child, what do? We immediately we change the tone that we are talking to a person in. We go closer to the baby and we might say something like, what do you want? Right? Now, that is baby talk. The reason that humans do that is because baby talk makes us look less intimidating, less scary. So it's to soften it and to make a baby understand that this is a friendly appearance, full of love and affection. That is why we have baby talk. But when your child becomes 2, 3, 4 years old, I urge all of you to try this. At least half the time that you talk to your child, you could still carry on that baby talk because it makes them feel pampered and special. But half the time when you talk to your child like you would to any other human being. Your voice, your tone, your tone of voice, your voice modulation. You can look at your 3-year old and you could just ask them. You could just ask them a question. Do you know where your ball is? And they understand. Do you think you'd like to have a cookie now? And they would understand. Just talk to them the way that you would talk to another human being, another adult. And the reason that this is important is that when we change our tone of voice, the child instantly switches to another level of thinking, which challenges their neurons and say, oh, this is not baby talk. This is something even more important. And the child begins to listen differently with more attention. The child can sense that your expectation is that the child has the ability to understand what you're saying. And the child lives up to that expectation. It is important, therefore, for all parents to limit baby talk. When you do this, the child is pushing itself to the next level of cognitive capability. And that is critical and crucial for a child's ability to remain a fast learner, a quick learner for its entire life. When a child experiences the right modeling of behavior, my first point, my second point, the power of touch, and the third point, your ability to limit baby talk. When a child has some of these traits and some of the 7 others that I will be talking to you shortly about, when your child is in grade 12, or when your child goes to degree or undergrad, as they call it abroad, what happens? The child, if you throw a new research project at the child is able to process that because the child knows on a higher level what and how to process thought. So those were my top 3 suggestions. And I'm going to go on to my fourth one now. And this fourth one, I think culturally, all of us, especially in India, need to start doing more. We need to start to teach a child how to make choices, how to take responsibility for your decision, and how to understand that every decision that we make has a consequence, good or not so good. If I decide that I love cheesecake and that I'm going to eat a big slice of cheesecake every single day as an adult for 6 months, I'm going to have to deal with cholesterol at the end of the 6 months. On the other hand, if I decide that I'm in the 11th grade, maths is important to me, and I'm working on my maths practice for 90 minutes every single day, And the good consequence of it is also my responsibility. Please start to teach your children from very early on how to make decisions. Tell them, don't make the decision for them. Let them choose. Let them choose if they want to eat a fruit or a cookie. And you give them both. And you tell them that if you have a fruit now, then maybe in the evening I can give you a cookie. And let them understand that there is a consequence to that. They will. This is a critical ability because all of the traits that you're trying to build are the traits that CEOs, especially the Fortune 500 CEOs across the globe, have said in terms of what they're looking for in the next generation of leaders. It is critical thinking and decision making. And that is what your cookie versus fruit will start to do for them. Don't misunderestimate the power of what I'm saying. So when you let your child make a decision, far too many times we make the decision for them. We are always like, beta, up ye khao. No, it's okay. Your 4-year old, your 5-year old, your 6-year old, your 7-year old can make a decision for themselves. Do you want to read this book or do you want to play this game? Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Ask them the questions and ask them in an adult tone. And when you do that, the child understands that they have choices in life. And just like us adults, they're responsible for the consequences of the choices that they make. My fifth tip to all of you is the power of verbal and nonverbal mechanics when you're talking to your child. How to talk to your child. Most of the time, most of the time, we're talking in voices that are far too loud. The first and the most effective way of helping your child become more intelligent is talking in a low volume with the child. And you will understand that when you lower your volume, even in your, you get more power. It's earned power. If you're shouting on top of your voice all the time, volume has no weight. Content does. So when you're talking, if you lower your the the volume and if you lower the speed of what you're saying and talk with purpose to your child and tell a child just by looking at them, you're the most important thing to me in the world, beta. That's it. And you talk in that soft tone, or you discipline them, but still in that soft tone. When they're 7, when they're 8, and this is something that will come in even more use as they become teenagers. And when I talk about nonverbal mechanics, nonverbals are everything that is communicated between two people without the use of words. So just by my expression, by my background, by my necklace, by my hair, by my energy levels in this conversation, there is so much meaning that is being conveyed that is much, much more than merely what I'm saying. And that is nonverbal communication. It has been scientifically proven by researchers in Oxford that the most important thing to do when you're talking to a young child is to be at eye level with them. So don't stand and talk to your child there. Make the child sit on top of a table and look at the child in the eye and lower your volume. Or you sit down on the floor. Look at the child and talk to the child softly, especially when you have children who throw tantrums. And so, what happens then is when you lower your volume and when you're looking eye to eye with your child's gaze, attention, the seriousness that you're communicating is that much more powerful. And the child knows that you're not joking, but you're also not scary because you're smiling and there's love on your face. And you're telling your child that you're doing this because nobody loves your child more than the way you do or your spouse does. So verbal and non-verbal mechanics is what this fifth tip of mine constitutes. My sixth tip to all of you is, please, it is your time and your attention that is going to have a profound impact on how your child begins to learn. And for all of us stressed out mothers and fathers, I have a phenomenal amount of respect for the younger parents today. These are not easy times to raise children in. It's becoming more complex with every decade. You're worried about who's going to care for your child. Your work pressures are insane. You have to worry about your own health. You have your social obligations. You have your financial pressures. And at the same time, in the current environment where, it's unprecedented, the kind of stress that all of us are trying to cope with. So I believe that don't push yourselves to spend a lot of time in terms of quantity of time. If you have to leave your child at a daycare or if you do have to work from home, spend quality time. Quality time, I think, is much more important because then you're giving them your single minded attention, which means that you hear your WhatsApp ding or you hear an email on your laptop or your neighbor comes and rings the bell. Nothing really perturbs you because it's the half an hour, 1 hour between you and your child. And there's some times in the day that are more special than others. The first 5 minutes when a child wakes up, the 1 minute before your child leaves for school or you drop them off at daycare, the first 2 to 5 minutes after your child comes back from school, and the last 10 to 15 minutes before your child falls asleep for the night. These 4 points of contact in a day are, have the most enduring emotional impact on your child. All of these things, again, go back to helping your child become and develop the core strength to become more effective learners, to be capable of taking decisions and bearing responsibility, to think analytically, to have critical thinking, to be able to communicate, to develop communication skills, because these are the skills that are going to ensure that your child is both professionally successful and happy in their personal lives. I think, like I said, it is our goal to prepare our children to live without us, to live happy, fulfilled lives without us, whether we are no longer walking the planet or if they're living in another continent. And that is why I feel that these are the things that really matter. I'm going to go on now to my seventh tip, which can be a little bit controversial, but it talks about us being open-minded and aware of your own biases. We were all raised and you were all raised in a different time. The kind of world that your child will be working in or being married into is something that we cannot imagine. We're living now in the month of June. This June was unimaginable in this February. The kind of world that the world will be in the year 2040, 2050 is something that we cannot even begin to imagine. So, the fundamental skill that you demonstrate to your child is that you're open minded, that you're open to new ideas, you're open to people who don't agree with you, who think differently, whose value systems are different, that you are not judgmental of other people, and you're aware of your own biases. It might be a political stance, it might be a religious stance, it might be a value system, but that was your life. And maybe, I had an unpleasant experience when I was a child. Maybe I had a terrible aunt in my family, or maybe my grandparents were not affectionate, or maybe my family had extenuating personal financial circumstances. But that was my reality. I don't have to take it and impose it on my child. So be aware of your own biases and be aware that you're not imposing those biases on your child. And you will realize this as your child grows, that they're thinking that the way that they operate, that their environment, their reality is so much more multidimensional than ours. And that is why they're a super brilliant generation and it just keeps getting smarter with every generation. So let us all try to put the brakes on how open minded, how biased we all are. My eighth tip for the day is monitoring screen time and type of screen time. The way that I see it, screen time is not avoidable. They are all digital natives, these kids. We are all digital immigrants. But there is kind of good screen time and not so good screen time. And what kind of videos should your child see? Science says that in order to enhance cognitive development in your child, you've got to show them videos where the images don't change more often than about once in 8 to 10 seconds, which means you show them videos like fish in an aquarium, where the fish is just swimming slowly from one end of the screen to another, or a cloud is passing by and it takes a full 8 seconds, and you'll see your child just look at the cloud from one end of the screen to another. And it keeps the child extremely entertained. And this is good screen time. Nobody is saying don't have any screen time for your child. That might actually be wrong. Have them, but make it something that's appropriate for them, that's developmentally appropriate for them. My ninth point talks about creativity. Again, all of us parents who are working today in large organizations and small organizations in any field, whether it's manufacturing, advertising, or pharmaceuticals, or sales, or whatever, what we realize is that the more creative we are, the faster we get to grow in our companies. And creativity really is not restricted to crayons and art and craft. Creativity is a fundamental form of thought. There was actually a research conducted that any child who learns a certain kind of an art form, whether it's classical music, some kind of dance, some creative pursuit, some child who can perform on stage, anything, they are 22 times more likely than other children to get a Nobel Prize. That is the impact that learning creative art forms have on a child's brain. But that doesn't mean that you slam your child's schedule with classes. Creativity and knowing how to appreciate creativity, all that it means is that, hey, mom, if you're cooking, play quality music in your house. Dad, if you're just hanging around home or if you're switching channels on television, stop a bit and watch something where somebody's playing a good instrument. Or there's some good quality acting. And it could be any kind of music, whatever works for you. But fostering a sense of creativity is a prerequisite to professional success and fundamental intelligence. My 10th tip for the day is please be conscious of the energy in your house. There is no right way to say this, but I'm just going to come out and say it because I believe in keeping things very real. Every house has issues, every house has stress, we all have arguments, we all have our independent bickerings. But once you're a parent, you put the child above everything else, which means that even if you have a disagreement, even if there is stress, you try to consciously monitor the happy energy in your house. Keep a child wholesome. Wholesome people learn better. So if you're arguing with your husband, you don't have to carry that on for 4 hours, 8 hours, 1 week. If you come back from office and you have had a stressful day and you're the dad, and if you've gotten off a nasty conference call, no, don't displace it on the rest of your home. Try not to. If you've had an argument with a relative, don't let that mess with the happiness in your house. What you have is truly precious. And those are my 10 tips. Model the right behaviors and attitudes. Never forget the power of touch. Limit the baby talk. Teach your child decision making, consequence, and responsibility. Be aware of the verbal and non-verbal mechanisms of how you're talking to your child. The time and the attention that you give on child, quality, not quantity. Be open minded and non judgmental. Monitor their screen time and type. Foster a sense of creativity and be conscious of the energy in your house. So, here are my final takeaways, and I'm about 35 minutes down because I'd like to use at least half the time of this conversation answering your questions. And I see I already have some questions. So, it's not about really their academic curriculum. If you start to teach your 2 year old or your 3 year old how to do double digit additions without carryovers, you're not doing your child any great favor. They're very sophisticated, qualified schools and teachers who are going to take care of all of that for your child. Who are going to take care of their academic curriculum, the shapes, the colors, the numbers, the sing along songs, the alphabet, 3 letter words, rhyming words. And from there on, more complex mathematical operations, addition, division, multiplication, all of those things are going to be taken care of. I promise you, we all learned it. All our children will. But this is really about a deeper role, about building the ability to learn by themselves, to learn by observing, to be able to multitask, to be able to function in a wholesome way when mom and dad are not there. So your child is in degree first year tomorrow. The child is sitting somewhere else in some other city. It's 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. You're not there with the child, helping them to make the right choices. So it is our responsibility to teach that child to live without us, to make ourselves almost unnecessary. I know that's a cruel thing to say, but that is my endeavor as a parent, where my child does not need me anymore. My child will always need me, but not in a way that they are dependent on me for tasks. That it is our generational responsibility. We have, we are better than our parents' generation because our parents did so much for us. It's our turn and we have to step up. So let's raise them to be empathetic, to be non judgmental, to be creative, and to give the child a sense of security and happiness. And while doing all of this, please have fun and enjoy the blessing in all of this chaos of the first 18 years of a child. Enjoy the chaos and the confusion and the stress, and don't miss out on the small moments of humor because they say having a baby changes the house. It does because children make us laugh and they're truly a blessing. Thank you so much. And now I think I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we've gotten. Okay, so I'm going to answer some questions that I got here, and I'm just reading this out. My baby is stubborn. How to handle her, and she can't leave me, and because of her, I left my job. And how to habituate her without me. She will cry a lot if she can't see me. Help, please. It is very understandable, and I commend you for having taken this decision to put your own career on the back seat. The way that you help a child get used to other people around you is by slowly trying to wean the child off of you, and know that it is a phase. Your child is also a social being. Your child is also going to need, sooner or later, other children of her own age. Like if you are today 32 years old, Going to need other 32-year-olds or 30-year-olds around you. Just be patient with it. It is a phase and your child will grow out of it. But in the meantime, get your child to get used to other people, to doing things independently. Maybe you could give your child some everyday thing to keep themselves busy when you're in the vicinity. So maybe you give them a cup of water and a spoon. What's the worst that can happen? Your child is going to drop it down, which is fine. But that, I think, in engaging your child and in teaching your child how to stay busy, how to occupy themselves by themselves, and also waiting for that point where your child begins to to realize that it needs other children to play with. This is a phase and it is going to blow over, I promise you. But yes, I do acknowledge how to how difficult this must be for you. Smriti Grover, this question is from you. How to increase the IQ of a 4-year-old girl? Okay, so everything that I said in today's talk, Smriti, should help you increase the IQ of a 4-year-old girl. Everything. And it might seem unreal to you that these are just simple things, but these are the profound things that parents across the world are probably not doing correct. So, if you listen to some of the tips that I gave you today in terms of a sense of touch, in terms of having conversations with them on a variety of topics, limiting baby talk, monitoring your voice, your control, all of these things, and giving them a sense of security and happiness, that is how you increase the IQ of pretty much anybody, especially a 4-year-old girl. My next question is from Tafreen Shifa. My daughter is stubborn as well as screaming all day, but at times she is silent. How to handle her? This is a phase. I doesn't say here how old your daughter is, but I can tell you that children learn because of what has happened in the past and what they have been rewarded with. So if your daughter is stubborn before, it's probably because she knows that she can get her way being stubborn. You don't have to be rude. A couple of times, put your foot down and teach your daughter that no means no. And that is the only way that a child will learn. And you can explain it to her, but you explain it to her in a soft tone by going down and talking to her at her eye level, by slowing down the volume, the pace at which you're talking. You must almost be whispering to her. And then she will realize that you're saying something that is very serious and that you mean. And you can smile while you're saying it so that you don't frighten your child. Okay? So, how to respond to the child when he gets cranky and doesn't listen? And this is a question from Tanvi Kalra. And I think that this too is answered by what I just answered to the previous question is how do you respond to a child when he or she gets cranky? Now, occasionally, once or twice, when your child gets cranky, it's okay to say, to go along, to pamper the child a little bit. Because they do say that from 0 to 5, you need to treat your child like a king or a queen. And, those strategies differ from every other subsequent age block. Once or twice in a way, you can give in to that. But more often than not, what's important is you set limits, you set rules. There is a house with discipline. And you will be actually surprised that a child feels more secure when there are rules in the house. A child feels like there are two figures who are controlling and who are responsible for their safety and for their security. That mom and dad have these rules so that the whole house is safe and everybody is happy. And that is why it is important to once or twice define these boundaries for a child. So occasionally, please, it's okay to put your foot down with your child. How to respond to the child? I'm done with that question. My next question is, my son has a problem, uh, and that he's very irritable. He's always cracks his teeth all the time and doing a pinch in irritation. What can I do? My son is having a problem. To be honest with you, I'm not a psychologist, but I can tell you just from indications that your child probably needs a little bit more confidence. He needs a little bit more positive reassurance. He needs happiness in his life. If he's cracking his teeth, there is something that he is not able to process, an internal problem that he's not able to process, or maybe he's not feeling positive, or he's tense about something. I I would encourage all of you to. I think we're having some problems with the video, but I hope you can hear my audio. Okay, and we should be on momentarily, not a problem. I'm just going to check my Wi-Fi connection as well. Okay, my Wi-Fi connection is just fine. So I'm going to keep talking. And therefore, when if your child is displaying, the feeling that they are nervous, I suggest that you have more relaxed conversations with him. Take a closer look at his social circle. Make sure that he has healthy friends, and he has a good, happy social life. It doesn't say here how old he is, so I'm really hoping that that you can um, you know, uh, one moment. I'm just trying to fix my video here. My laptop says my video is not going through, but I hear that it is, so I'm going to continue with the session. Um, so these are the things that I would recommend: is please pay close attention to and think about why he's doing what he's doing. Don't be overly worried. Just be a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more involved, and certainly this is not a problem that cannot be handled, especially if your son is very young. The next person says, "My son gets so angry and throws items when we are not giving it to him, and so he also doesn't even respond to them when they ask questions. Displaying tantrums, anger, behavioral issues is almost always a symptom of an unfulfilled need. Your child is showing and displacing frustration in this way. There is something going on that your child is not able to express. Anger issues are always dealt with rules and with love and understanding. Learn that your child's reality is different from yours. So please talk to your child and talk to them when they're in a good mood. Try to find out what in his life he's not able to control or he feels a lack of control over. Does he want to be good at a sport and he's not that good? Does he want to have more friends and he's not having the kind of friends that he wants? Does he, when he's playing with other kids, does he feel like he's not been given his turn, or does he feel like his teachers are partial to other kids in class? Start a conversation. You will find a reason that he is angry, and you can deal with it. Love, rules, sensitivity. Those are my words for you. Since I have more questions, I'm going to go on. Um, and I'm having a little trouble reading this question. How to not get affected by the child's behavior. Sometimes they get angry with us, upset, and it leads us to a lot of parent guilt or stress. This is a very honest question. Please be very, very proud of the kind of parent that you are. Like I said, this is by far the most difficult time to be a parent. And I truly believe that everybody here needs to stop and feel incredible about how much you are all doing to give your child the best possible future, the best possible school, the best house, no dearth of toys, the best education, the most amount of time. your best self. So please don't personalize it. It is a phase, and your child will grow out of this phase. It just needs molding. It's almost as if a potter is working with mud, and when the mud is just rising, when the pot is not even formed, the potter begins to feel terrible because there is no pot yet. Obviously, there is no pot yet because this is a 25-year project and you're in probably year three. So feel good about yourself and never, ever go on a guilt trip because I know you're doing your best and you know you're doing your best. But what I would say again is rules, empathy, conversation, and an environment of being open minded, all of these things go a very long way in ensuring that behavioral issues with your child, tantrums, throwing things, um, the child has learned that from somewhere. If and the child is only modeling it, and it might not even be in your own house. It might be in a movie or in a video that you're watching or in a neighbor's house. A child doesn't know how to automatically be like this. Maybe when it sees adults acting when they are angry, the child is modeling that behavior. So I think all of these things will help you deal with those aspects of your child's undesirable behaviors. But again, no guilt, no stress, please. Um, Generally, elders in the house spoil the child with unwanted fulfilling the wishes and still don't let them take any responsibility. How do I start to make my child's responsibility to me? Um, my child's grandmother, my mother in law, lives with us, and it is a blessing to have three generations in a house. It teaches your child wisdom that you will not see today, that will become evident with time. The impact that grandparents have on their children by their values, by their way of thinking, by their way of dressing, which is so different from ours, it increases their range of thinking. It is a grandparent's job to pamper the child and to spoil the child. It is a parent's responsibility to discipline the child. Let don't let or expect that a grandparent can become a parent because they are in the enjoyment phase. And as a parent, you are in the responsibility phase. There is a very significant difference there. Until and unless there is nothing that is obviously inappropriate that is happening, which I'm sure you can talk to the previous generation and tell them that something is just not done and you request them in a nice way, let them go ahead and pamper the child for that much. Because when you correct your child with love, there is no competition in this. You are irreplaceable as a parent. Just like in our own lives, my mother and my father are irreplaceable. And I'm sure it's the same with most of you. So please don't confuse the roles of a grandparent and a parent. It is their mode to enjoy, your mode of responsibility. And if you're asking me how you make your 4 year old listen to you, I think I've already covered that. Is let the choice in small things be theirs. What they want to eat, what they want to watch, what they want to wear, when they want to take a bath, when they want to sleep, when they want to get up. Give them a couple of choices. Let them drive their life. Right? My next question is how do I instill responsibility and consequences? She's too young, and I've answered that question. Please try these small things. These are very powerful tools. How to engage children in games during the phase of Corona. I'm a doctor. Um, Thank you for your work during this time. If you're a doctor, mankind owes you a great deal. But how to engage children? It doesn't say here how old your child is. But yes, the number one skill that I think a child needs to learn to cope with is boredom. It's okay to let your child get bored. It's perfectly fine. Were you entertained 24 hours a day when you were a kid? Didn't you figure out how to play with a piece of paper with five stones, with a glass of water, with some balloons, with two color pencils, with a ball and a bat and a cardboard sheet for stumps? Did you not keep yourself busy? So it is not your responsibility to make sure that your child is always entertained and happy. It's okay for your child to get bored. However, the way that you engage your child in games and what kind of games might be one, does your child have the company to play these games? If you are having a profession that takes so much of your time and you're saying here you're a physician, is can the nanny play with her? You have others in the house who can play with your son or daughter. Do they have friends that they can play with? And are there interesting games to play? Are there simple games that are developmentally appropriate for every child? You know, throwing a little ball in the air is game enough for a 2 year old, for a 3 year old. And maybe from that point on, we all start to build in complexities in games. So I hope that tells you a little bit about how you can get your child engaged in games, keep themselves busy. Your child is very creative, very explorative. Leave your child alone for some time. They'll figure out the games by themselves, just like you and I did. Someone else here says, my kid is 3 years old or almost 4 years old, and she's not open for online classes as she knows everything. Um, she doesn't reply back even in the classes, and she's revised but she doesn't speak up in her online classes. My suggestion to you is let your child just please be themselves. It is important if your child is open to online classes, and anyway your child has some screen time. So, in this era of lockdown, when there is so much of uncertainty and unpleasantness going around all of us, if your child is, looking at their class teacher's face for 20 minutes, 30 minutes in a day, maybe that sense of familiarity is entertaining. But if your child doesn't reply or give the questions, maybe your child doesn't feel like it. Isn't that okay? Let your child just be, because your child will come up to a point where they want to answer, and it's not a competition. Your child doesn't have to put up their hand and be the smartest one and show it all the time. So in ways, if your child doesn't feel like doing something momentarily, I think it's okay to respect it. It's too small an issue now, and I think that over a period of time, as long as you're making sure that there is no negative feeling behind that behavior, you're okay. Negative feeling, as in she doesn't like the teacher, her classmates are being mean to her, she doesn't like the classroom experience, she dislikes the school. As long as these bigger issues are not behind it, it's okay, really, if your child doesn't just put up their hand and answer, right? I only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to take a few more questions here. My uh, my my son is stubborn and cries, and I think I've already mentioned how you deal with stubborn children: rules, boundaries, love, voice, modulation, volume, and occasionally giving in, reasoning, decision making, the making them understand the consequences of the decisions that make. All of these are strategies for I think dealing with stubborn children. Does an unhealthy or constantly stressed environment affect a child? I live in a joint family, and most of the times things are pretty intense. And this is why I said what I said. When adults argue, when adults fight, insulate your child as much from it as possible. It has an enduring effect on the mental health of your child. Your child will carry the vibes of the house for all the decades that they continue to live. It will determine the kind of spouses they are, the kind of parents they become, the kind of professionals they are. It has one of the most profound effects on the kind of people they are. So, whenever there's a disagreement, a fight in the family, please consciously, as much as possible, try to end it as soon as possible. Keep the children out of it. Even if your child is 14 or 15, don't discuss that with your child. But more importantly, is as much as possible, try to neutralize it. And it is important. And if you are living in a joint family, other couples have children too. So just like you care for your child, maybe somebody else cares for your niece, right? Or your nephew. So collectively as adults, if you could be a little bit more mature about it, because let's face it, it happens in every house, not just yours because yours is a joint family. But I think that these are the things that we need to be conscious about. What is the maximum amount of screen time suitable for a 4.5-year-old in a day? Not more than a couple of hours. That's my straight, simple answer. And it includes everything: TV time, tablet time, phone time, game time, school time, class time, everything. What type of habits can I introduce to help develop the habit of reading? First, read. Two, make reading fun. And make reading fun during fun times, when right before the child falls asleep, or in the evening when you have some time between two different chores. That time, use every opportunity to explain to your child how much fun it can be to read. The world of storytelling, the world where anything is possible, where zebras lose their stripes and stars fall off the sky. It's the magic of stories. So once you sell the magic, I think they'll start to read stories by themselves. My 5-year-old daughter is doing a lot of self talk. Please suggest how to stop this. Um, Doing a lot of self talk. If your daughter is talking to herself, she's probably talking to invisible friends. And as long as the talk is positive, please know that invisible friends are a very common trait in children. Many of us have had invisible imaginary friends, and it is okay. Self talk fosters creativity. And if she's just talking, we used to play house house or teacher teacher, and we used to constantly keep talking amongst ourselves, that's okay. And therefore, if you can roughly limit and watch what they're saying to themselves, as long as it's positive. But if you see um, something disturbing in that trend, then maybe you can initiate, excuse me, a conversation with your child. And if it is really disturbing, I would recommend that you do seek the help of a counselor. Okay, and the next question is: we're a nuclear family, and my 5-year-old son is too much attached to me. How can I make him independent? Um, this was one of the strongest reasons that I always felt that it was better and more important to have other people in your life, neighbors who interact with your child, or the necessity to send your child to a daycare, even if it is just for 2 hours, or a preschool, even if it is just for 3 hours. And don't worry about it, it is a passing phase. And right now, because you're living in a nuclear family, and maybe your child just is used to, your spouse, maybe the maid, and maybe if they have a sibling, and that's it, just 4 or 5 humans. But with time, give your child the more opportunities to mingle with other human beings. In this time of a lockdown and in this COVID era, maybe that's hard. But when the times normalize, have more people over. Take your child over to more people's houses. Let them have video calls with other people in the family, right? So I guess I've answered most of the questions that I have received, and it's been an absolute pleasure to answer all of these questions. I thank you all so much for being so participative and for giving me a patient ear. Uh, it's important that after the age of 12 or 13, you almost start to treat your child like a friend. Trust your child. They're making decisions that they that they know best, and encourage them to make their mistakes. Prepare them for failures. Let them learn to deal with their emotions. And these are not just words. This is what behavioral psychology teaches us. This is what success quotients demand. This is what CEOs of the biggest and the most powerful and successful companies on the earth mandate. These are the skills that matter. So I wish you all good luck with your children, and I hope that you find the sense of humor. Be extremely proud. Let there be no space for guilt. We're all stressed. I know it's a hard time, but it is going to pay you a reward that comes back to you manifold. I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you so much. Again, this is Vidya Murthy, CEO of Tacit Education India. You're welcome to visit our website, BASSETT educationindia.com, to see about the different kinds of programs and courses we offer. It's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Take care of yourself and your children. Bye bye.